So welcome back, guys. We'll be waiting 1 minute before starting the stream so that other students who are joining can join the stream. So I guess we can start the stream now. So this weekly free lesson stream is divided into three parts. One will be the lesson stream that on the topic Decoding Magnificent Magnus. Second part will be a stream with a top sports trainer. And third will be a 30 minutes arena tournament in 3+0 format. So we have just decided that due to absence of difference between registration, because when we provide recording, people are actually not very active in the live session. So we won't be giving recording of any weekly free lesson. So you can only watch it once you are here. So there will be no recording provided for the lesson. So you better focus on the lesson which is going on right now. So the students, so we will be, just give me 1 second, just starting. Yeah, we'll be doing some sound check, and then we'll take it forward. Just let me know if you guys can hear the voice so that I can start it.
Hello friends, in the previous webinar we Hello friends, in the previous webinar we had discussed the similarities in the playing style between Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion, and Bobby Fischer, the world champion from the past, and the impact which Carlsen is still having currently. Now, we also had seen one example of how Fischer converted an apparently equal looking endgame where he had a slightly better knight against a bad bishop for Saidi, and he converted that apparently equal position into a win. We saw that a lot of effort involved from Fischer, and it also meant that he had to create many plans over the board. Now, from Fischer's game, we have understood that the knight should be on e6, and subsequently you have to play f5, f4, get the knight to f5, and so on. Now, this game was played between Magnus Carlsen versus Pelletier in 2008. It was in BL Open. And there's a small story behind this. This was probably my last chess tournament I played as a professional chess player. I have played a couple of tournaments after that, but not as a professional. So in many sense, this was my last tournament as a player. And I had gone also with one of my students who made an international master norm in this tournament. And on the day this game was played, I had finished my game much earlier, and I was planning to go to my room. But then I saw this endgame in Carlsen's position, and I thought Okay, Pelletier is going to make a quick draw today with the black pieces, which is fantastic for him because Carlsen obviously was very strong with 2775 rating, and Pelletier was somewhere in mid 2550s. So here I thought the game is going to end in few moves, and then I thought let me see the end and then go to my room. And let's see what happened. Now in this position, we have an opposite color bishop endgame, and Carlsen had not thought much to come to this position. I was just thinking like probably black came better prepared in this position, got a comfortable equality and making a draw, and once in a while it happens at all levels. So I was beginning to appreciate Pelletier's preparation. And Carlsen played the move a4. Now what does this move do? Carlsen wants to play knight b5. For example, let's say I play a move which looks very natural, and then white simply plays knight b5. And in this endgame, suddenly the pawn on a7 could create real headaches for black because white has the option to go rook a1. Not only that, the pawn on d6 is also really strong. And if white can play d7, bishop c6, and then rook e1, rook e8 check, black will be in for surprise. So obviously, black cannot allow this exchange to happen on the square b5. So black's move is understandable. He played a6, stopping knight b5. Carlsen plays bb7. Now let's, before we start going deeply into the game itself, what is more interesting for me in both this game and Fischer's game is, before we get into that, maybe another important question. Now many players have this question, slightly better positions, they are already thinking about how to win a game, can I win this game? And like I explained in the previous webinar, that is not the right way to approach such endgames. The most important thing is, do you have any chance to fight for a win? Is the position completely equal, or is there a possibility where you can create more problems for your opponent? And as long as you can create problems for your opponent, you must fight. I have seen many young players in slightly better positions where they can create some problem for the opponent. They settle for a draw, especially if the opponent is a higher rated player, and they are quite happy about it because I made a draw with a higher rated player. It's good for me in general, and I'm also gaining probably 3-4 rating points. But what we are losing out is we are missing a great opportunity where we could have actually created some problems for our opponent, and who knows, if we did not defend well, maybe we could have won as well. And if we win such small end games where we have very small advantage, it does help us in many ways. One, it gives us confidence and faith in our own endgame abilities. This is something which every player must earn. You cannot learn this from others, you must earn it. And how do we earn this? By winning positions with small advantage against stronger players. Now, if we do that, then it gives us a lot of faith in our own endgame technique. Not only that, it also puts tremendous pressure in the future opponents because they know that you are good in your technique. You can convert small advantages into your win if they don't play correctly, and that puts tremendous pressure on your opponents as well. So my advice to you guys out there, if you get a small advantage in endgame, even if your opponent is extremely strong, my suggestion, don't give a draw. Just keep pushing, keep creating small troubles for your opponent, and let's see how they handle. If they handle it well, they have earned their draw. But don't give the draw prematurely without making them earn that half point. So here Carlsen again sets up a question for the opponent. Do you want to play a5 or not? So here Pelletier did the best thing. He ignores the a pawn and tries to remove the pawn on d6. Now any pass pawn is always a good thing to have a pass pawn, and in this case the pass pawn is already on the 6th rank. So white should not give this pass pawn so easily. You should try to stick to the pawn as far as possible, and when you reach a point where you cannot hold on to the pawn, probably that is the best time to give the pawn back. So Carlsen's move is very understandable. He saves the pawn and rook behind the pass pawn. This we have seen already in the beginner's content. This is a very basic concept. Whoever has a pass pawn, the opponent should always be behind the pass pawn, not in front of it. Having the rook on d8 doesn't really make any sense. So again, Carlsen's move understandable. He had an option to take the a6 pawn and give the d7 pawn, but he is trying to hold on to the d7 pawn as long as possible because it's just one step away from being promoted. Till now, both players' moves are very understandable, and Pelletier has done extremely well. He found this idea of h5 rook h6, which is somewhat similar to the Fischer game. Fischer played h5 king h7 in the previous webinar. And knight f3. Black is very happy to exchange, and for the simple reason that now we have on the board the presence of opposite color bishops. Now, presence of opposite color bishops in an endgame drastically improves the chances for making a draw. So black is very happy. He knows that he can bring the king to e7, go back with knight e5 and collect the d7 pawn. So the dangerous pass pawn is going to be lost sooner or later. But for the time being, the knight is under attack. So he gives a check here. Nothing much is happening now. Now if king g2, knight e1, it will be a draw, which Carlsen obviously doesn't want. So he plays h4. Now this is again very interesting, and this is what I was telling a few minutes earlier as well. Carlsen could have simply agreed for a draw here. He could have played king g2 and repeated the position with knight e1 and have blamed it on bad luck or bad opening choice. I didn't get any advantage, I got an equal position and I agreed for a draw, but he didn't do that. And this is an important lesson for young players who are aspiring to become professionals. As long as there is some juice left in the position, you should try to extract as much as you can. King e7, now knight e3. So as you can see, white is not thinking about winning the game, but simply focusing on getting the pieces into the right squares, creating small problems for the opponent to solve, and who knows how it will turn out. So this is the approach one should take when you have a small advantage. Just improve your position little by little. Don't worry about the big picture. That will evolve much later. Do what you should be doing now and focus on that. So g6. Now white finally realizes that he is going to lose the d7 pawn eventually. Now we reach this endgame. So by this point I was almost sure that in next few moves the game is going to be a draw, because opposite color bishop, there is no obvious glaring weakness in black's position. Of course the pawn on f7 and b6, we cannot say they are very strong. They are going to come under attack eventually, but I thought, okay, with the king he can defend the f7 pawn and the bishop is already defending the b6 pawn, and it doesn't look like white is having much. Let's see how things turn out. White improves the king position. Now again you see here he is doing something very instructive. He is giving a choice to the opponent. So whenever you have a small advantage, if your opponent can play only moves, then he will find those moves and his job will be easier. So what we should do at such positions, try to make opponent take decision based on choice. Now he has to choose which square is better, knight d4 or knight e5. Both have their own pros and cons, and usually at such moments players choose the wrong one. Now Pelletier played knight e5, cannot really blame, but now white gets this move f4, and again you see black is given a choice. He can go knight g4, trying to exchange the knight in an opposite color bishop, or he can go knight c6, but in that case he has to consider the consequences of bishop b5, bishop into c6, king into c6, and then playing with the knight versus bishop. So it is these type of questions to go for an opposite color bishop or a knight versus bishop. This is the kind of choice you must always give to the opponent. And Pelletier chooses to go into an opposite color bishop ending. Carlsen gives an intermediate check. Again, the same logic. He is giving a choice. Now black has to choose. He can go king c7 to the queen side, or he can go towards the center with, let's say, king e7 or king d6. Now it is these moments usually players, not only that, it puts tremendous psychological pressure on the opponent. Never underestimate the value of psychological pressure to the opponent in general in chess, and especially in endgames where your opponent is defending. It's not enough to try to win the game based on the merits of the position alone, but it is also important that you create practical problems for your opponent and make him solve them over the board. Not everyone has unlimited resources of energy. People get tired, and usually when we reach such positions, the opponent has already played probably like 40 or 50 moves. He is already tired. He is thinking of finishing the game and going back home sooner. In such a mindset, when your opponent is there, you make him sit for some more time. And not only that, make him think and find the best moves. He is not going to like it, and more likely mistakes are committed under such pressure. But for this, again, it's the same for us as well. We have played probably like 40-50 moves already, and we are also getting tired. From this, we can understand that if you are physically and mentally tough, fit, it helps a lot in such situations. You are having a lot of energy, and probably your opponent doesn't have as much energy as you do. So Pelletier chooses the best way probably. He keeps the king to the center. The king side pawn battery, h5, g6, f7, and it is in the white color, so he needs to be extremely careful. So he prefers to stick to the king side pawns rather than the queen side pawns. Obviously, Carlsen doesn't want to go to an opposite color bishop ending completely. And he had a choice. He could have gone knight c4 as well, but he goes knight d5 check, king d6, bishop c. Now you can see some problems black has with this pawn and the other pawn as well. So there are two weaknesses, but only one weakness is under attack currently. The other weakness on f7 is still not under attack. And 39th move, Pelletier plays knight h6. Let's see what other options he had. Now in general, in endgames, we should try to play more with pieces and as less as possible with pawns. This I have explained in the previous example as well, but we need to remember this and follow it religiously. So black doesn't want to make any pawn moves. Let's see what other piece moves are left. Now the king, if he goes to c6, then you just pull back the knight and the f pawn will be having problems. Okay, so black doesn't really want to move the king, because when white moves the knight back, he wants to have the option to go back to e7 and defend the f7 pawn. So there is no good king move left. The bishop cannot move, because if he is going to play bishop c7, knight c7, he will lose the f7 pawn. So as you can see, black is already in a small zugzwang. What small zugzwang, by small zugzwang I mean is, he is running out of moves. Now a good endgame player should have the ability to spot these moments. If you just ask from white's viewpoint, can you win this game? The answer probably would be no. But if you ask the question, what can my opponent do? And seriously start thinking along these lines, especially when your opponent's pieces are passive and there are some weaknesses, you are attacking those weaknesses and your opponent is defending those weaknesses, then you will realize that in many situations which looks apparently equal, they are not completely equal. Opponent is actually having problems finding useful moves. So Pelletier went knight h6. Doesn't look like bad move. He is guarding the f7 pawn, and also he wants to come knight f5 and focus on our own weakness instead of just defending his weakness. But the problem with this move, Carlsen exploits immediately. Now with this move, knight e3, the knight on h6 is stuck in the corner. Now he cannot move the knight because he will lose the f7 pawn. So what should he do? So if he makes the pawn move with f5, then he should always be worried about the g6 pawn. So he cannot push the pawn now and he cannot move the knight. So the only thing that is left is probably to move the bishop or the king. So let's see what Pelletier does. He moved the bishop because the b6 pawn is not under attack anymore. Now any normal player would have played b3 automatically without thinking, but that would just mean you are not creating problems for your opponent. Let's see what Carlsen does. He plays b d3. Now this is another very important decision which Carlsen did. It doesn't change the assessment of the position. The position probably is still equal or maybe slightly better for white, but definitely nowhere close to winning advantage yet. But what does he do? Now, there are some assumptions that in an endgame, it's not really important to calculate long variations. Is that so? In my opinion, no. Many young players feel if it is an equal endgame, you just have to play logical moves and the game will automatically end in a draw after some time. But it is very important that even in endgame, till the game is over, both players should be mentally ready to calculate variations. We should never play on just logical assumptions alone. Don't play all the obvious moves, but instead try to keep some juice left in the game. There should be some calculation the opponent should be forced to make, and this is what Carlsen is achieving with this. Obviously, the pawn on b2 cannot be taken because of knight c4 check. And what does bishop d3 do? It also takes away the f5 square from the opponent, and not only that, he is also introducing the threat of f5. Now, we should not be asking whether f5 is a serious threat. We should look at it from the psychological viewpoint. When you create new threats, new problems for your opponent, always going to wonder where you are going to hit next. By just saying, I have the possibility to play f5, we are not saying I'm going to play f5, I'm just adding that possibility as well. Not only that, white also wants to play knight c4 check, forcing the king to the queen side. So earlier we have seen that black was preferring to keep the king to the defense of the f7 pawn, bishop defending the b6 pawn. He was comfortable with that configuration. But now with this, white is trying to alter the things, take the king to the queen side. All this adds to the psychological pressure. So again, he goes back bishop d8. Now knight c4 check can be met with king e7. So Carlsen doesn't do that. He plays king f. Now you see how Carlsen is alternating between 1. Preventing opponent's active ideas, 2. Slowly improving his own pieces, 3. Giving choice to the opponent where he has to choose between different options available, 4. He is also keeping the tension alive. He is keeping different threats like I may go knight c4 or I may play f5 and your knight on h6 is not coming into the game any sooner. So it's creating small tensions, and when you keep creating these kind of small tensions in the position, at some point even strong players, they crack under the pressure, because it's very tough to defend such positions. How long you're going to just do nothing and wait for the opponent to show his plan? So Pelletier, he found an interesting solution. He played knight g4. I wouldn't criticize him for that. When I was watching this game live, I was very impressed with how calmly Carlsen was playing the game. It didn't look like he was very nervous. He was very calm and a lot of self-belief. And this is very important for every young player. If you keep wondering about the result during the game, then you will not be able to give your best. You cannot create problems, you cannot play the best moves. And that's all we have to do. Just play the best move to the best of your ability and accept the results as they come. So Pelletier, he was fed up of defending passively and he thought, okay, let me find an easy way out. We all know that opposite color bishop has tremendous drawing possibilities. There are many positions where even if you are 2 pawns down, you can still escape with a draw. And here he is just giving 1 pawn sacrifice. So, but that is already a concession. Carlsen pounces on that. And now he played king e6. Let's see how Carlsen continues. Now the advantage has grown slightly higher, but as I said, the opposite color bishops just increase the chances for a draw. Now king e7, it goes king f3. Now one of the ideas is probably just advance g4, h5, create an outside pass pawn. And in an endgame, it's always good to have an outside pass pawn. Not only that, the king can also consider going to the queen side and focusing on the b6 weak pawn. So there are 2 ideas which black has to guard against. So he played f5. In some sense, black is preventing both the ideas. Now g4 will just lead to more exchange of pawns. Now one thing we need to remember in endgames is, if you are defending slightly worse positions, try to exchange as many pawns as you can, because with more pawn exchanges, the draw is closer home. So converse is true. If you are playing for win with small advantage, you should try to keep as many pawns as possible on the board so that your chances for winning such endgames is higher. Now, can you tell me what the idea is behind this move? It looks like a very quiet move, but he is trying to enter the queen side in this route because the e4 square is not available anymore. And black has to worry about the base pawn on g6, because if he allows white to play bishop f7, then he could be in real trouble. So he keeps the square f7 under control, king d3. So what white should do next? Just move the bishop away and get the king into the game. So pawn is under attack, b3, and now it looks like this position, either it is drawn or it is lost, but it certainly does not look like this is the critical moment in the game. It looks like just another phase of the game, but already this position is one of the most critical positions. The correct way to play for a draw is to go king e7, and when the bishop moves, threatening king c4, king b5, you have to start attacking the weak pawns in white's position. This is the correct way to create counterplay. You must go after the weak pawns. And if white has to play for win, now the point is, if king b6, we have this check. And it's black who wins the game. So that's not possible. It cannot be permitted. So he has to play bishop f7 and king b6, bishop g6, bishop g3, h5, bishop f4, bishop f5, and this is a simple draw because the bishop will stop the h pawn, and if white tries to bring the king here, black will simply prevent by bringing the king closer. This is what he should have done, but during a practical game after so many moves, it's not possible to calculate everything accurately in all the positions. At most points, we are making moves on general considerations, and that's what Pelletier did here. Let's see how the end is. Very instructive. And now he is going with the king to the b pawn. Pelletier is happy. He has saved both the pawns. When I was watching this game, I thought that maybe black could be put in a zugzwang here with this interesting pawn sacrifice b4. But unfortunately, it does not work. Let's see what I was trying to achieve. So with this, what we have done, we have made the black bishop kind of under arrest. He cannot move the bishop at all, and it's a question of trying to put him in zugzwang. Can we just try to go, maybe give one of the pawn and collect both the queen side pawns, create a connected pass pawn on the king side if possible, because the bishop is out of the equation. But it doesn't work. For example, even if we get the king all the way, at the right moment, black will sacrifice the pawn and activate this bishop. The bishop will soon come to f2 and collect the pawns g3, f4, and then even sacrifice the bishop for the b pawn. White bishop and the rook pawn is drawn because the rook pawn square is a dark colored square. So this is not working, unfortunately, for white. So possibly Carlsen saw this as well. So he is just waiting. It's not easy for black again. So you see, he is giving a choice. Black has to decide, should he go king e7 or king g7? He chooses to stay close to the center. White improves the king. He is again not committing himself to any particular plan. King f6. Now Carlsen found a very good plan, bishop d3. What is he threatening? If the king goes away, then we have two plans. Maybe we can go h5, gh5, bishop f5, or even g4, fg4, bishop g6, have two pass pawn. Now let's see what can happen. For example, if you go king e6, then g4, because king e6, the pawn on g6 is left unprotected, and you can punish it quickly with the move g4. Now if fg4, we take the pawn. If we try to push the pawn, bishop e4, now we have 1, 2. Now this pawn is going to go forward, and at some point he will be in zugzwang, because the king can quickly come and aid the f pawn advancing as well. Let's see how it can be done. After king f6, h5, king g7, f5, both the pawns are rolling. Now he is getting into a zugzwang. As you can see, if he pushes the g pawn, I'll capture it. If he move the bishop, I'll capture b6, and the king is stopping both the pawns. If the king moves, one of the pawn will roll. He's already in a mini zugzwang. So if he goes forward with the king, now bishop d5 check, king g7, king b7, the next small zugzwang comes on the board. Because now if you go king h8, I can push the f pawn. If you go king f8 as well, I might push this or even the, so he is lost. So in the game, he played king f7. But what is wrong with king f7? The pawn on f5 is unprotected. So if he goes king e6, the g6 pawn is unprotected. If you go king f7, the pawn on f5 is unprotected. And this you exploit with this. After gh5, bishop f5, what has white achieved? Earlier we had a pawn majority but no pass pawn. But now also you have a pawn majority, you have a pass pawn, which makes a big difference. So here he played this. Now it's still not very clear whether white can win this position, but he can. Now it's again black is in zugzwang. How is that? If the bishop moves, then we take king b6 and the a pawn is ably supported by the king. So the bishop alone cannot stop the a pawn unless he sacrifices it. Otherwise, he doesn't have any pawn moves. He is left with just king move. Basically, black is playing a king and pawn ending, but white is playing a king and pawn ending with infinite bishop moves. So you can always give the move to the opponent with a bishop move and ask him to move the king to a worse square. So he goes king g7. Now we have this endgame. It looks like completely equal. I would suggest you to think hardly about this position and try to find a winning plan for white. So the most important thing is white has few waiting moves. You can simply play bishop e2, bishop d1, bishop e2, bishop d1, or you can play king b5, king c6, king b5, king c6. And we have already seen that black is running out of moves on the queen side. He cannot push either of the pawns, he cannot move the bishop. The same way, he cannot move his h pawn either. So basically, as I said, he is playing moves only with the king. Now usually when your opponent is forced to play only two moves, as is the case here, what are the two moves available for black? It's king g6 or king h6. So whenever your opponent is left with only two moves, it is very easy to hand over the move to the opponent. Now by handovering move to the opponent, what I mean is, if white wants this position to come with the opponent's move to play, all you have to do is make three moves with the same piece and come to the initial position on the third move. For example, in this position, let's say, now after king h6, it's white to move. Let's say if I want king h6 with black to move, what I have to do? Just play first move, second move, third move. Yes, it's so simple. So all you have to do is move the same piece back and forth. On the third move, come back to the initial square. Because your opponent has only two moves, when he comes to h6, you go bishop f3 and it is his turn to move. So this is one simple way to give the move to the opponent if you want to put him in a zugzwang. But Carlsen did something else. He has another waiting move, which is king b5. Can you tell me what the idea of king b5 is, apart from just giving the move to the opponent? He has already noticed a zugzwang. Can you find it? Let's see. So Pelletier has only two moves, king g6 and h6. He did that. Played bishop d1, king here, bishop e2, king here, bishop here, king h6, and now bishop c6. And he resigned. Why did he resign? Because after king g6, we are going to play bishop e8 check, king h6. All you have to do is just play a waiting move and the game is over, because not only you are attacking the h5 pawn, you have taken away the g6 square as well from the king. Now he has no moves left. If h4, gh4, if the king moves, bishop takes h5, if c4, bc4, if b5, you lose the pawn, bishop moves, the pawn on b6 is lost. Now from this final position, we can draw some important conclusions. It's not always possible to win in endgames if it is your turn to move. Let's say if this position it's white to play. Now how can white win? He cannot win. He has to give the move to the opponent. Let's say you play king b5 and black says you play one more move. It's not easy to win these positions if it is our turn to move. So in many endgames, we can win the position simply because it is our opponent's turn to move, as is the case here. Now don't think this is an exception, this is the norm. Usually in advantageous endgames, one side is winning simply because the other side has to make the move. Okay, so never underestimate the power of Zugzwang in endgames. So in this example, we saw how Carlsen outplayed Pelletier, who is a very strong grandmaster himself, from an apparently equal position, right? And this is very similar to what Fischer did to Saidi in the previous webinar we had seen. So both these players, they are not really looking for big advantages from the opening, and Fischer was known for his fighting spirit. He was playing for win even with the black pieces, and that is one thing we have to learn from Fischer. And in the modern generation, we have players like Vasilin Topalov, who is also a tremendous fighter, and he has told in many interviews that one of his role models is Bobby Fischer, and he has modeled not only his style approach to the game, even many cases his opening repertoire. Fischer used to play King's Indian, Granful, Naidov, and Topalov used to play these openings as well. So one of the characteristics of Fischer was he was always playing for win even in equal positions, especially in endgames. He was never content with a simple draw. He was trying to create more practical problems for the opponent, which they have to solve on the board, and many of them could not do that. But unfortunately, after Fischer, not many were trying to take this approach forward. They were just assuming that with better technique, it's easier to defend those positions. And Fischer's opponents were not up to the mark. They didn't have the same defensive technique as the modern players. So modern players would have drawn those positions. But even today, we have seen even top grandmasters, they don't always find the best moves even in apparently equal or drawn positions. So that is what Carlsen is capitalizing on now. He is going for endgames more often, and for example, in this position, it didn't look like he had much to play for win, but that did not prevent him from trying. So this is very important lesson for young players out there. All you need is your mental power. You have to have the determination, that fighting spirit, that I will keep fighting. Even if I don't have an advantage, even if the advantage is too small, I will keep creating problems for my opponent. So you don't need a winning position to win. You need the willpower to play for win. That's an important lesson we can all learn from Carlsen, and particularly from this game. So with this, we will conclude the second webinar. Thank you very much.
While I start the session, the stream of the session with a mentor trainer, the tournament link I have shared, the tournament link will start. Tournament will start at 9:35. So the reason why we are playing session with mental trainer, because chess psychology plays a very important role in improving you guys as chess players. So at times we don't realize it, but the players throughout their lifetime, some of the players are stuck at certain rating. They do not improve. They keep on working hard, but they do not work on their psychological aspects, which results in a lot of athletes, not in chess, not only in chess, in other sports, depression, and at some point of time they leave that sports and focus on academics or other things. So on this note, let's start the next session, the stream with a mentor trainer. We'll be doing just a second of sound check before I start.
What do you think is the role of physical fitness and how it can affect chess performance?
I think very important area and most neglected area, I would say. A lot of players don't really realize the connection between physical exercises and the performance. because chess is a mental game. You don't really use your body the way other sports are played. But there is a very, very close connection in these two areas. Mental performance, mental endurance is closely linked with the physical fitness. So if a player becomes physically tired, if he is physically drained, then it directly impacts the performance in the game. If a game lasts for 4 hours or 5 hours, it is physically tiring, and for a longer tournaments, let's say after 4 or 5 days, and when the more important rounds are coming up, that time the players are not as fresh as they are on the day one. Day one first move, the freshness level is like 100%, and they just keep going down. The energy keeps getting depleted. So if a player is physically stronger, they have much better endurance, much better stamina, and then the performance doesn't deteriorate.
Okay, as much at least.
Yes.
Fine. So would I be wrong if I say that success, failure, the ability to concentrate well, and the ability to fight back in a difficult situation, not giving up prematurely, so are all these habits?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A player is nothing but a bundle of habits. And
Okay.
in fact, mind is a habit making machine. Because to do anything consciously, it requires a lot of mental effort. It requires energy. So the brain tries to convert everything into a habit so that you can do any particular task without thinking about it.
So basically the mind tries to find an easy way to do a thing, and so that in a similar situation in future we can just keep repeating it.
Yeah, so
and if you don't form the
yes.
right habits, we'll be repeating the wrong one over and over again.
So it's like learning to drive. When you learn to drive a vehicle, cycle, initially it's a very, very conscious effort, and then after a few days everything becomes easier and
Routine.
automatic. Why? Because then it has become a actually habit. You don't need to think about it. So the same thing happens in almost every area of life. If you see players, what time they get up, what time they sleep, sleeping is a habit. Similarly, even the foods, the food habits are again equally important. How do they train? How do they sit in a match? What their posture is. So apart from that, even the game style also, if we specifically go into that, their attacking style, defensive player, so that everything is really nothing but a habit.
Fine. So if I have the habit of being a lazy guy, so how do I form the habits and become a hardworking guy?
As I said, there is concept of systematic training, and to start we have to really do an assessment of where you are. So assessment means physical assessment, mental assessment, the assessment of the game, and then give the right amount of training load for you. So you need to really quantify how much you can train. So if suppose someone is not really working out, and if we ask him to start running every day, it's not possible. Whereas if a player is unfit, and if we tell him that okay, the first idea of a month is just to go and maybe spend 10 minutes every day at a very, very easy pace, that is a right goal for the player. And if player achieves that, it forms a positive feedback loop, and then it gets going.
Fine, but I get the thing, like this is mostly to do things related to physical activity. For example, if I don't have a habit of running, how do I get to a stage where I run more? Probably there it makes sense, but I'm asking in another way. For example, if a child is not seeing enough chess, so what is making the child to miss out on working more? I mean, what is missing so the child doesn't feel the need that I have to see more chess? And from there, how do we take him to a stage where he feels I need to work more, I need to learn more, and he starts putting the effort?
I think it is really, from the coaching angle I'm saying, is that it is really about defining the training program and making it suitable for individual needs of every player. Because so far the problem has been in every sport, how do we individualize the training programs for every player? Because it's not easy to assess each player and give them a separate program, and it's a challenge. And again, in academies and in different places, there are so many different players to look after, and you have to give them some kind of a common program. But there is definitely a need to individualize the program, because again, physical things are easy to explain maybe in this setting. That's why I'm saying this, is that different players have different capacities, and if we expect everyone to run at the same speed, it is not a right expectation. Similarly, if we expect them to run a particular distance, it is not the right thing to do. So coming back to the basics of chess, again, everyone is at a different level. So how do we assess them? How do we assess? Because I have so far I have not come across a assessment kind of a program for chess, which is why perhaps I think it's not very easy to individualize it.
Probably coaches just go by the rating, because that already gives them an idea at which stage the player is, and they probably take it out from there.
Yeah, because I think in terms of openings, is there something called an assessment of the a player's opening performance, and say that okay, this is where exactly he is weak, and you work there for next 2 months, and then we can reassess and see that okay, you have improved, because some kind of assessment needs to be there.
Fine. So in my experience, what I have felt is like, if a child comes to me to learn the game of chess, there are a few things which I obviously look out for. First is how keen the child is to learn, how keen the child is about the game. If the child shows a lot of passion towards the game, and the child is ambitious and wants to learn and get better, that enthusiasm is there. I think that is the starting point. If the child is very enthusiastic towards learning, that makes it all the more easier. And then I usually talk to my students a lot about what should be their priorities. I think if we set the priorities right for a child when they are very young, then it will be easier for them to handle the pressures that is going to come later on externally, and also from their own performances. So for example, I try to tell them, like, you need to, from the word go, there are only few things that is important for us. One, I'm doing this because I want to do this, not because of my parents or not because of Ramesh the coach. As a child, I want to do this, one. So the second thing is, I'm willing to work very hard to learn all the good stuff. So I'm not going to restrict myself to learning only few things which I like to do, and I'm also willing to learn things which I am not comfortable learning. For example, in chess, if many kids, they like to attack, but few kids like to defend. But eventually, if they want to become great players, they also need to learn how to defend.
Right.
Yeah. So if we can let the children know from the beginning that you have to learn things which you like, but eventually you also have to work on areas which you are not going to be comfortable learning. Yeah. So if we can prepare the mind, I think that will make it easier for them to learn as well.
True. And I think, to sum it up, I think it is about forming right kind of habits. And as you said earlier, I think that sometimes if the bad habit is formed, it just keeps repeating.
Yeah. So and it's really difficult once the habit is
yes.
set to come out of it and form a different habit.
So I think even this awareness, how a habit is formed, because we can label it as a good habit or a bad habit, but ultimately habit is nothing but programmed behavior. So if players become aware of it, that how the habits are formed, so how to form good habits and how to dismantle the habits which are not useful, then it becomes a very, very, very powerful weapon for them.
I just received a few interesting messages on chat box. One of the students has asked, can we do tournament after the IPL match? Okay. So just remember that while IPL is a very entertaining format, yeah, we do enjoy watching games. But for someone who wants to be a professional chess player, you need to focus on your game. You need to focus on learning chess, playing in tournaments. So and you can always watch the highlight of the match. So I'm just sharing the link again. So I will. So top 5 winners will also get 60% discount coupon on lifetime subscription of Dream Room, and the top winner will be getting a free dynamic play course. It's an 8-part course. You will be getting 1 part of the series, which you do not have. So that's about it. So I am open to taking, like, while you guys register for tournament, if anyone has any question. If someone has written that there should be a t-shirt on which there should be written nurture. Okay, thank you for reminding. I guess today I'm not wearing nurture t-shirt, so apologies for that. But in the background you can see there's a board where nurture is written. So it's not a rule that we have to wear nurture t-shirt, but still I do most of the time. If any parents or any student have any question, I will be happy. Thank you, Khushi. And so a lot of parents have messaged me that is this weekly webinar enough to become a great chess player? So my answer remains same. So it is not. So it is not enough. You need lot of more training, which we do provide on Nurture in form of one-on-one chess training, different group sessions. So just to share, one of a very interesting course is starting on this Sunday, and there is a reason why we are doing such courses, capsule courses. So let me just share the screen first. So this is a website of the course that which we are launching, and at times students do not realize the power of certain topics. So we found out that good and bad bishop understanding of a lot of chess players who are at intermediate level is weak. So we are launching this 3-part course, which is going to start from Sunday. That is suitable for someone who is rated between 1200 to 1800 rated, not suitable for beginner. And this is a multi-course series, and this is just the first course of that. Based on strategical chess play, we are doing multiple courses with Coach Baisakhi, especially for players who are between 1200 to 1800 rated and who want to improve their strategical chess play. So the first course is good and bad bishop. So the detail is there. The first class starts in 4 days, 9 hours. You can see. So this is a 3-hour course, 3 sessions every Sunday, Indian time 7 a.m. and the rest of the time is mentioned. So and the students are asking the fees. The fees of this course, the peak FIDE rating of coach is 2100 plus. So that this course is, which he has more than a 15-year of experience of teaching students. So at times for the person who is asking this question, for you this course is absolutely suitable, because I know you personally and your rating as well. So, and yeah, at the end of this course, you will be getting a signed certificate like this. For a student, a pre-enrollment offer is going on right now. For students in India, you can just enroll as well by paying just rupees 450. And for the students outside India, you can just enroll just by paying $9. So that's about it. 3 sessions, and that's about it. Any question? If you have, you can write on chat box or the Q&A box. I would be happy to answer. Meanwhile, the tournament will be starting in 10 minutes from now. Yeah, I won't be streaming the tournament today, because parents have complained that the streaming, at times students are getting disturbed. and they're listening to the commentary instead of focusing on the game. So I will be ending the session right in 5 minutes from now. So the topic is extremely important, and we keep on doing the course where so it doesn't matter, Abhiram. So less player mean you can actually win the tournament. So probabilities increase. So let's see if we can win this time. So that's it. Okay, a question that we do: can we move the timing after the IPL? Again, is some IPL favorite guy is asking a question that can we move it after the match? No, we cannot move it after the match. Maybe you can miss 1 hour of match and watch these sessions. Okay, if anyone has any question, so I will be ending this session. Thank you guys for joining in, and stay tuned in for the next week lesson. You just fight back and super live courses we are trying to resume as soon as possible. So we are working out on those. So meanwhile, we are launching some short courses and weekend camps on calculation as well as there. So just let me share. Now, for guys who are actually struggling with calculation, so we have been doing calculation camp where we were distributing some free passes till now. So like for the first 12 camps, for even all the super live subscribers, so we have distributed passes worth, I guess, 12,000 rupees to all super live and fight back users for this camp, but free passes have expired now. So this is a calculation and camp series which happens every weekend from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. with Rado, is an international master and a very acclaimed coach. So the next camp starts in like 3 days, 15 minutes. So you can actually subscribe. For example, if you are from India, you can just take a package at like say 10 camp package at just 2499. The offer is going on right now. or if you have ever been a nurtr Edge Super Live or Fight Back subscriber, you can ask for a discount coupon on plus our WhatsApp helpline number was 919953. For all the someone who is existing subscriber can ask for existing discount coupon on this. So yes, no more VIP passes for this camp. We distributed a lot of VIP passes for last 12 camps worth 12,000 rupees. In dollars amount to $40. We have distributed to a lot of students and all super live and fight back students. So that's about it from now. I guess it's time to end the session. All the best for tournament. Okay, someone wants me to share the tournament link again. Let me share it once again. So my recommendation is you should go for capsule courses now. And if you have not purchased Dream Room is a course which can definitely help you improve a lot in chess. Okay, I'm able to copy. Okay, first. The tournament starts in 3 minutes from now. So all the best, guys, and we'll see you next week. I guess no questions now. Thank you, guys. Thank you.